Long-term orientation versus short-term orientation. This determines the attitude and belief society has towards goal setting and future planning, whether or not they are planning for the long term or the short term. A long-term orientated culture would plan for the long-term future. They're less focused on short-term success and can see the bigger picture at hand. They are more concerned on important topics such as economic growth in the long run and the future of the world. A country where this culture is high is in China. There tends to be a higher long-term orientation in countries of a higher score in collectivism, as they're more concerned about the end picture as a group, i.e. they're looking at the future for everyone. They're not in it just for themselves, they care about their grandkids. A short-term orientated culture would focus more on achieving short-term goals and obtaining short-term rewards. They're more focused on the present performance and the long-term future goals. This occurs more in societies with high individualism. An example is the United States, where they're looking at the short-term plans. Countries with democratic governments also tend to have lower scores on short-term orientation, as they are always changing. Indulgence versus restraint are the dimensions that determine how society values the satisfaction of human needs and human desires. It also looks at how appropriate it is to express a sense of satisfaction. This basically shows to the extent which a society deems it's okay to express and show emotions. An indulgent society is a society that allows the expression of positivity and satisfaction. It puts emphasis on the standard and quality of life, such as holidays and leisure time. Good example of this are the West. The Western culture has a high indulgence score. A restraint society is a society that has more rules and regulations and tends to follow a stricter path. Expression of satisfaction and joy is not encouraged. It's a culture where their expression of joy, happiness and positivity are less freely expressed. However, this does not mean these cultures are not happy, it's just not common practice to express them so freely. Asian societies and Eastern European countries often score highly on restraint. Criticisms of the model. There are a few criticisms of Hofstede's model, one being the different definitions on culture and what defines it. Some people view culture as countries, others view it as groups. Certain researchers, such as researchers from an economic background, may define it in a more quantitative way, i.e. a country, or in an economical way. They want to look at it as a whole figure. There's more than 164 definitions of the word culture, and therefore it's extremely hard to pin down what culture actually means. It means something different to everyone. Equivalency. The model assumes that equality is perceived the same across culture, i.e. a male role in one culture may be deemed as a female role in a different culture, and you can see where the problem is. Sometimes something that's deemed as masculine by one culture may be deemed as feminine by another culture. Different cultures have different beliefs and understandings and theories, different ideas on roles. Relevancy. Some cultures are more sensitive to certain variables than others. For example, one culture may value one variable extremely high, such as collectivism, and another culture may value it extremely low. It may not mean anything to them, and therefore it deviates the results. Cultural homogeneity. Culture again is assuming a whole domestic population is homogeneous, when in reality the culture could be made up of many, many different ethnic groups and backgrounds. For example, having a lot of students from one country and another, when the theory is being put out, could drastically change the results and result in unfair answers as perhaps not a fair representation of the culture, as the students are only there for a short term and don't represent the culture as a whole. The model is conducted hard on individual responses. Responses may occur that ignore the importance of community and variations within a community. Another drawback is a one-company approach. The original study was based off one company. Validity may not apply to larger entities and may not accurately define cultural dimensions. There are political factors that also affect the results, such as world wars. World War II in Europe caused a high level of uncertainty avoidance and altered the perception of masculinity. The rise of communism in Asia, Africa and Europe also affects it, and there is also a huge difficulty in obtaining data from socialist and third world countries. There are cultures where some of the 6 dimensions bear no relevance whatsoever and they may not even understand what they mean. This theory can be used in all aspects of the business world. For example, working in sports management. In sports management, there are different cultures everywhere you look. For example, in a football changing room, there are over 15 different cultures, but they can be perceived as one culture when they're in the same country. Therefore, it's important to gauge an understanding of the different cultures. Using this framework, it's easy to understand why certain people from certain cultures will react in certain ways to certain situations. Although this theory has its criticisms, there are many academic papers to back up the research. Huang looked at the relationship between a response to security at airports using Hofstede's cross-cultural dimensions. He concludes that it's clear that visitors from high power distance countries tend to be less satisfied with their experience of airport customs. This supports their theory down to the hierarchical structures they have back home.